In our previous videos, we walked through the creation of a custom workflow connector. We covered the settings, authentication. We went into flows and showed some of the system flows like the HTTP helper, and the auth paying flow, and we created our first action, get requests here. Now that we have our connector built and we've tested out these flows within Connector Builder, the next step would be to deploy this so we can make use of it within Okta Workflows itself. To do that, we'd click on the Deployment tab. And the first thing you'd want to do is validate that your connector is configured properly. So we'll click the Validate Connector button. We can see this passed our validation test. This would test to see if maybe you left some vital flows disabled or have some fields that aren't configured properly. Since our validation was successful, we'll deploy a test version of this connector first. And here we can see we've deployed version 1 of our test connector. So now what we can do is we can go over to Okta Workflows and we can try to make use of it and make sure it works within an actual workflow. So we'll create a new flow here. We won't create an event just yet, but we'll just make sure that we can get to the connector and test it out in this context. So we'll click the Add App Action. And we can see in here, we won't find our connector because what it is a test version of the connector. So we'll need to make sure we click the Include Test Connectors checkbox here. And now we can see our connector there. So the test version of the connectors will have an icon that's grayed out and have the word test next to it. So we'll click this. And now we can see our one action that we've created on there is exposed here, get requests. We don't have any connections set up for this. The connections in the workflow, in the Okta Workflows, are separate from the test connections that we've created over in Connector Builder. So we'll have to create a new connection here. Our connection was successful, and we can see we don't have any inputs for this card. We didn't configure any just yet on our connector. So all we have is the outputs, the request object. So what we can do is we can test this out within this flow. And here we can see we've got the output we expected. And what we'll do is we'll head back over to the Connector Builder. And now we want to deploy a private version of this connector. So this will be just like all the other connectors in Okta Workflows. In order to do that, we'd click the ellipses over on the Actions column for your connector and click Deploy Version. Once we've clicked that, we can see there's some work being done over in the Private Deployment section. And this will take a little bit longer to complete than the test version did. Now we can see we have an actual private version of our connector deployed. And we can head back over to the Okta Workflows Designer. Here, if we follow the same steps we did before, click Add App Action, we can see our connector has been deployed here. I don't have the test connectors selected there. If I did, I could see both versions, our test version and our private version. We'll select the private version here. We can see our Get Request action. Click on that. We've already got our connection set up when we ran the test. We should get the same result that we did before. We didn't make any changes, and we're good to go.